Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Totalbiscuit here, bringing you another interview. We're doing pretty well in terms of magic in our interview series at the moment, and what better way to continue that with a game called Magicka. Now, this is by a studio called Arrowhead. It's coming out fairly soon, and I wanted to get them on the show to talk a bit about their game. I saw their trailer, I was very intrigued by the concepts behind it, so I am happy to introduce a member of Arrowhead Studios who is here to talk about the game today. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Johan Pileset, and I'm also CEO of the company.
Is this Arrowhead Games' first title?
It is. Magicka is something that started out as a student project, actually, in 2008, actually. So it's been sort of in development for a long time. But when we started making the game, it was actually like an entry for a Swedish game development competition. So we won that competition, by the way. It's Swedish Game Awards 2008, and we got a lot of positive feedback from people in the games industry, and they told us, let's do something with this. It's a really good concept, and we thought about it and schemed, and in the end we decided to just start a company and drop out of college.
Okay.
And progress on that line.
Now, would you suggest to most viewers out there that dropping out of college and starting a game development firm would be a sensible course of action?
No. In retrospect, things could have gone so much worse. Things couldn't have gone better than it did for us, and I don't think everyone will have that sort of success. So stay in college, kids.
There you go, folks. Responsibility. Right, okay, so let's start on the game, shall we? Now, I'm playing the trailer in the background of this YouTube video as we speak through the wonders of modern technology, and the first thing that struck me about the trailer was the fact that you don't seem too scared of, we call it in England, taking the mick out of your own world, as in mocking yourselves in terms of how generic the fantasy world is. So I suppose the first question would be, why did you decide to go down this route of parody?
Well, it sort of evolved in some strange way, I suppose. One of the main influences of the game, actually it's just one scene, is the scene in Lord of the Rings where the Fellowship is trapped in Moria in like the chamber, and the troll and goblins come in and try to defeat them, and that sort of like defeating goblins or orcs or whatever you want to call them, goblins I believe in Moria, and also assisted by a huge troll, sort of made its way into like spell casting and all that, and soon from the beginning we actually realized that fantasy has been done so many times before, and just pulling your own leg with it's just fun. And if you look at the words like Discworld, which is another like big inspirational source, it's something we've been accustomed by, like Family Guy, for instance. They have also done the thing about mocking themselves, and we're really fond of that. Like developers being humble about their own work and not being too stuck up about it.
Now, considering some of the comments on that trailer on YouTube, aren't you a little bit afraid that this approach might backfire a bit, and that gamers aren't going to get the joke and they're actually going to say, oh, well, this is just some boring, generic fantasy game? Of course, but I suppose going in the other direction, like being super serious about it, I think we would lose more players or miss out on a lot of people that would otherwise be interested. Like raising like the awareness of the game through mocking ourselves is, I think it's a better move than actually trying to try to persuade everyone that we're making this unique fantasy world, which we're not. It's super basic, standard, like fantasy 101. Fair enough. Now, as regards to the game itself, the majority of your combat isn't really based on swordplay, it's based on elemental magic. So why don't you tell me a little bit about the elements that players are going to have available at their disposal to fling at enemies?
There are 8 elements in the game, There's life, arcane, cold, fire, water, lightning. I'm having a hard time remembering them. And there's also cold. Did I mention cold?
You did, I believe. So what we could say is there are so many elements that the developers themselves can't actually remember.
I can't.
Good variety there. I'm happy with that.
This is one of the mistakes we actually talk about a lot before doing interviews. Never count the elements because you always forget.
Well, it could be another boring game with only 4 elements. You've decided to go for 8, and I applaud you for your bravery there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, anyways, you can combine these elements in any way you want. So, for example, combining fire and water will create another element, which is we have two hidden elements, which are steam and ice. So, fire and water make steam. Fire and earth, which is another element, just creates a fireball, and just fire by itself is like a flamethrower effect. So, by mixing these elements, you can combine. Well, you can create whichever spell you want. So, for example, if I'm going up against a lot of orcs, I know they're fairly resistant to fire. They are fairly well armored, so earth projectiles will just bounce off their armor. So I might use lightning, because lightning is like this element that does extra damage against metallic objects, like in a Final Fantasy-esque kind of way. I don't know where the logic is in that, but people seem to get that lightning and metal is bad.
Yes.
Or I could use water beforehand to soak the orcs and then use lightning, and then it would be a lot more effective. But on the other hand, if I use water on them, so they're wet, I can't use fire on them because, well...
They're wet. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so it wouldn't be all that effective. Okay, that makes sense. How far does that really go? I mean, let's just discuss another one that you had there, arcane. I mean, what would happen if I combined arcane and fire? Would that have some special effect, or would it just be a little bit of extra damage?
The arcane effect is actually sort of a beam effect, sort of like the Ghostbuster rays. And we'll also include a pun in that you never cross the beams.
Right.
And you really don't want to do that because you get this huge explosion if you do. If they are of opposite elements, for example, combining a fire arcane beam, and then another guy hits that beam with arcane water, that will create a huge blast because they're opposites.
That sounds hilarious. Surely that's a good thing.
Yeah, sure. It could end up in being a hilarious moment, which it mostly is, or it could actually be used as a weapon. If you place this blast, cross the beams in the right place, you can actually damage your opponents with a mighty blast. But it's quite tricky to get right, and usually somebody dies.
Dying seems to be a bit of a theme, as I've noticed in some of the pieces of gameplay footage that you've put out there. And how often do you expect that to happen? Are you looking to create an environment where players die in a variety of hilarious ways?
Yeah, sort of. At least by humorous consequences. Not thinking before you act is one of the main reasons why wizards die, apparently. I saw somebody writing in an interview that they now understand why the wizards in Harry Potter were only allowed to use spells inside of Hogwarts. It's because, well, things go wrong when you mix and combine spells. So the dying aspect of the game is really important, as it happens a lot, but it's easy to revive your fellow wizards using the magics. There are more powerful predetermined combinations that you can find throughout the game, and using this revive magic you could just bring back your fellow wizard. So you really have to think about how you act, and you can actually use that as a tactic. One guy could just go in, sacrifice himself by using some epic magic, and then the other ones could revive him. One of the more common phrases you hear is rest clicks
or
during gameplay sessions.
Fair enough. So you were talking about predetermined magic there, so let's go on to that, and that gives me a nice opportunity to ask you about how exactly all this is going to work in the user interface. Now, I hear this is a multi-platform title, so PC gamers are going to be playing it, and one has to assume it's going to be on one of the next-gen consoles as well. So it seems potentially a little bit complicated to combine these magical elements together in a way that doesn't take a lot of time. So can you explain how exactly you're going to pull that off?
For a gamepad controller, which can be used on the PC, you conjure spells by like a very simple gesture system, which is based on one of the analog sticks. So you move them in firstly one direction, which is either left, right, up, down, and after that you continue to rotate the stick in a half circle, and that gives you one element. So, for example, right then down is fire, and right up is cold. On the keyboard, on the other hand, the elements are easily accessible through just a button press. Okay. For example, Q is the arcane,
right?
Which can be reconfigured, of course. But those are the main way you create spells.
Fair enough. And how many of these predetermined spells are we going to be fighting, and just how important are they going to be in the gameplay?
They're usually specific situations where you want to use certain of these magics. For example, one of the magics is invisibility. For example, you and your 3 friends are surrounded by lots of trolls and orcs and whatnot. Then you can just cast the invisibility invisibility magic, and just let your friends take the punishment, and you can escape. And there's teleport, which can get you out of those situations. But there are also the more powerful ones, like meteor shower or thunderstorm. These magics aren't always good to use. You have to work together to make them really effective. Like one guy has to create a shield. Shield is also one of the elements, which I forgot. But you have to create a shield and keep it up by boosting its power. And this is done through a button mashing sequence.
Okay.
Not a sequence, but just button right. mashing. Otherwise, this magic will kill you. I mean, it's really devastating, and you have to work together to let it do the damage on those not righteous or whatnot.
Evil creatures. So
yeah.
It sounds to me like this game is very co-op based. I mean, using these devastating magics in single player doesn't sound like a particularly smart idea.
No, the spells are sort of self-balanced. The more epic spells are the spells that are harder to control, like thunderstorm or meteor shower, usually requires more players. But when you are playing single player, you can actually unleash more powerful spells, because you don't have to be worried about killing your friends.
Okay.
So it sort of balances itself, and there's several occasions where people get a little bit too excited, and Earth projectiles start flying. Huge Earth projectiles would just pass through everything, and they roll over wizards quite easily. So just being able to unleash spells without thinking about hitting your friends is sort of an advantage.
Fair enough. So in regards to the multiplayer available in this game, what kind of types are we going to be getting? I mean, I assume we can expect online play? Full 4-player cooperative online play. In addition, there's the versus mode, which is 4 players just getting at each other in versus. And also we have challenge modes, which are high score based modes, where you have to there's a survival mode where you have to fight off enemies. And also the campaign is playable through online and also local. So if you got 4 controllers, you can just plug it in and play with some friends. Or if you prefer, you could just use the keyboard and mouse and have another controller, so you can play 2 players, one on the keyboard, one on the controller. Oh, that's excellent. So you can just mix and match control methods onto a PC?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
and it's
right.
really through a really simple interface. So hopefully we'll get most controllers working.
Indeed. Now, I'm told that PC gamers are extremely antisocial and wouldn't be seen in the presence of another human being. So, are you sure that local co-op's a good idea for PC gamers?
Well, it might be. Actually, I can only speak for myself and the people I know. As there haven't been really that many co-op games, like local-based co-op games, since Heroes of Might and Magic, I believe. Settlers have some kind of local multiplayer.
I believe
also
the last one that I remember is Trine. Actually, Trine definitely had a local co-op, but that really was about it.
Yeah. So I think it's something that PC gamers have been missing out on, and of course I realize that people won't go out and buy 4 controllers just for the sake of it. But if you've got a friend who's got for example, the Xbox controller, he can just bring it over and you can just go at it. And I think that players are missing out on the cooperative action, and I think it's something that's been missed in the PC gaming crowd.
Yeah, I think you might be right. Now, I'd like to go on to one criticism that I have seen pop up, and lots of criticisms are going to pop up. That's just the nature of the internet, but it's always good to be able to clear misconceptions. Now, you're looking at a game that is pseudo-isometric, got a lot of enemies, looks a little bit Diablo-y, a little bit Torchlight-y. So, it's not that, though, is it? It seems to me that it's far more of an action-adventure game. For instance, you were saying in one of your videos that loot actually plays a very minor role.
It does. Loot is something that's really haphazardous, if you will. As soon as you grab a sword, which there are plenty of in the game, as soon as you die, you lose it. It might fall off a cliff, or it might be there when you get revived. So the gear you acquire is very temporary, and you can actually just kill off a friend and get his gear. so the greedy factor that plays in like the human psyche, whatever, is it's pretty clear that people are greedy when you play this game.
Uh-huh.
So the reason why we went that way with loot is that we don't want to focus on like the grinding aspects of games. Sure, there are games that do grinding very well and like finding new equipment, but there are so many of them. Like people developers sort of take the easy way out by allowing people just to grind and expect that. Well, now we raised like game time from 4 hours to 20 by just adding grind. And I don't think that's a fair way of portraying the lifetime of a game by just adding such a minor aspect of the game, like assembling gear. So we rather believe that the replayability comes from players wanting to evolve and get better, like in the good old arcade days where you could just grind the same game over and over just to achieve the highest score. Now we realize that this won't work in modern gaming, as people aren't that fond of not fond of games, but they're not as tenacious as they used to be.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I suppose they kind of are to some degree, though. I mean, with the advent of achievements, you've seen people doing all sorts of ludicrous things in order to get virtual badges.
Yeah, achievements is, however, one thing that we do have in the game, and we think achievements are supposed to be like achievements. They're supposed to illustrate that somebody has done something remarkable.
Yeah.
For example, the Battlefield Bad Company achievement, where you have to kill a helicopter using the airstrike.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, it's
ridiculously unlikely.
The title for that one is 1 in a million.
Uh-huh.
And it really is. I spent many hours on that one, and checking other people's achievements is something that should be fun. Like, oh, how did he achieve this? It's almost impossible. So like the grinding and the the grinding and the repetition in the game, like for the hardcore players, is baked into the achievement system, I believe.
Fair enough. Well, as regards to how long the game's going to be, do you have an estimated length? How long would it take the average group of 4, say, who's never played the game before to make their way through the first time?
Well, we've got this campaign system that's split into several paths. So for one run through the campaign, it would probably be about 3 to 5 hours. But once you've done that, you can do a replay of the game and find lots of secret levels. We've got like a three campaign which you can like go through, and that gives a lot of replayability, and you can play the game. I think it's 6 different paths or 7 different paths.
Oh, excellent.
I'm not sure about. So you can find lots of secrets, and also in the levels you've already completed, there is tons of secrets to find and secret dialogues and stuff like that. And also, in addition to that, the challenge modes and the versus gives quite the lengthy gameplay time without a loot system.
Okay, yeah, that sounds pretty reasonable. Well, in that regard, do you have any intention of supporting the modding scene?
The modding is, however, something that we had to leave out of the plan, as we're a small studio. Just making the tools and opening up the source or at least making a level editor it's too much work for such a small studio to handle.
Okay.
But if the game gets a lot of support, we're sure to at least look into it. Many of us have a background in the modding community. I, for example, came from the Half-Life 2 modding community, or Half-Life modding community actually from the beginning. So there's a lot of... I know modders are a hardcore crowd, and they're like the definition of a hardcore loving gamer.
Yeah.
And of course we want to try to support that, but at the moment it's unreasonable, and we just want to make the best game we can.
Yeah. Just out of interest, you say small studio. How many people do you have working for Arrowhead at the moment?
At the moment we're 8 people working full time. So that's very small, even for a small studio.
Yeah, no kidding. Fair enough. Well, I suppose the last few questions are fairly obvious. What kind of price can we expect this to come out at? Is this a full retail release?
Oh, no. Yeah, well, as many have speculated, it's going to be around $10 or something like that. The price isn't established yet, but somewhere around that.
Okay, and what kind of platforms can we expect this on? Now, I'm not just talking about console here, we're talking about digital distribution platforms. Will we see it on Steam, for instance?
Yeah, that's one of our main platforms is Steam, and also, obviously, as Paradox Interactive is our publisher,
Gamersgate. Yeah,
Gate.
absolutely.
Yeah, of course. And as of now, it's PC only release. It might change in the future, but that's the only platform we have announced so far.
Fair enough, yeah. I've heard that getting your release onto Xbox Live Arcade and, say, PSN is actually quite a lengthy process, and I'm not just talking about converting it to work on a console, but I assume that's in your mind.
I can't make a comment on that, but
okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Right, well, the last question is quite simply, when can we get our grubby little hands on this game?
It's Q1 2011.
Okay. And can we expect to see a demo before that?
Hopefully. But yeah, at the point of release, there will be a demo.
Excellent stuff. Johan, thank you very much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thank you.
Check it out, guys. Q1 of 2011. It's coming. It's not particularly expensive at all. It is the price of a good lunch. I do mean a good lunch. Thank you very much, Johan. And guys, I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.